Gary Breen.
Hello, Joe.
I deliberately didn't talk to you before we started because I didn't want to have to replicate our initial thoughts of bloody hell.
It was amazing, mate. It really was. And we touched base yesterday, you and I was just prepping for my article to the preview of the game and just felt like I was going over the old same stuff where the lads were saying one big win and the Lansdowne effect. And you're thinking, oh, guys, we've heard this so often. Can you possibly produce? And my God, did they? I mean, I'm not exaggerating, Joe. There were moments watching that, and at the end, I'll tell you why. I felt like I was my teenage self again, like, and how much it meant to me in terms of how emotional I was in terms of. Now, listen, I know there's still work to be done, but even say for example, the songs at Lansdowne, the famous ones, of course, the Fields Vaff and Ryan O'Leary.
Your team
No, I don't know about
of
no, not that, but even like
Come on, let's sing it.
the boys are the boys are back in town, and these are great. These songs, but what was it electric at the final whistle was that Free From Desire song that's been around for about 10 years, hasn't it? But we've never had a chance to sing it. We've never had the chance to sing that song.
We're the only team in the world that has not
Who
had a
hasn't?
chance to do it.
Oh my God. And if anyone gets a chance, I'm saying to all my mates now, you need to watch that because suddenly I just heard that the opening bars into that song. I thought, oh my God, Lansdowne is about to erupt. And when they took that song on, I was like, do you know what? I'm actually getting goosebumps now. My uncle who's followed Ireland before I played and when I did and was there, he's just had a double hip operation. And I can still feel that he was jumping up and down at Lansdowne on the back of that song. It was amazing.
Oh, listen. The bit where it goes, whew,
Yes.
never felt so good.
And do you know what? Looking at the faces in the crowd as well, there's a generation now of like late teens, early 20s boys and girls. And you're thinking, you've never had this moment. I know we keep going back to say the Germany win and that, but that's so long ago that this generation's never had it. They've had their moment now. And they must be thinking, as our lads must be, the team must be thinking, my God, I want more of this.
Oh, listen. Because there's a thing about you, I think people have detected it over the years, almost more so since you stopped playing and we've got to know you a little bit better because obviously as a player you're focused and a bit cosseted away. People have got to know just how much the team means to you, just how much Ireland means to you, because there is a spectrum of players who are UK born and play for Ireland. Some of them, it's a kind of a career move in some respects,
Yeah.
and they don't think about it, and they get asked, and they do very well for the country. You're not in that camp. You're more in the Kevin Kilban end of the spectrum. Like, put it this way: when I WhatsApp Gary Breen, his profile picture is 5 or 6 year old, 7 year old Gary Breen in his Ireland
In
jersey.
my O'Neill's kit, yeah. And do you
Yeah.
know what? I've actually got one hanging up there, an adult version. I was going to put it on this morning, but I thought I might be jumping the gun. Perhaps I'll save that for after Hungary. No, of course. And reason why that type of win evokes so many memories is because of being that kid in London growing up and with a very Irish culture around you and always having to fight against this brilliant England team and what they're going to do to us at Euro 88 and, those type of things. And I know it's kind of like a bit romantic and stuff, but it felt like we were really up against it last night. This is a Portuguese team, and it was just so emotional. And for me as a supporter, and I can understand all the supporters feeling exactly the same, just so proud of the lads. But from an even more personal level, I'm so delighted for them. I'm delighted for me as a fan, but I'm so delighted for them because they've had to take so many like punches to the chin and get up again and for them to experience that moment and that essentially what the dream of playing for Ireland is those type of moments. I know that the biggest picture is doing it at a World Cup. That's the one that we all dreamed about, and they've given themselves a fighting chance.
Yeah. No, it was very special to see them do the lap of honour. And, because usually their lap of honour is a lap of apology. So they really deserved it. Where do you want to start on the game?
Oh, so much to dissect as such, and I've come on to you like you know what I'm like. I always like to watch the game back, but I've watched the first half back again today without the emotion last night. But one thing I will say, Joe, is that while I was watching it last night, I never had any angst. I've never had that feeling really watching it, and I thought, do you know what? This is so comfortable, and I tell you why that happened. It immediately happened with the way Portugal set up. I thought, oh my God. There's so many things when you look at that squad as a coach or a player, you're probably thinking, what's our best case scenario in terms of facing them? And I was looking at them thinking, you're playing a back three with Neves at centre back. I said straight away, bang, I think the coaches, as soon as they saw that and the players saw that, said, we've got a great chance here. Because it didn't even mean that we had to play through the thirds constructively. We didn't have to get our heads up. We just had to play balls being behind them. And if you think about Neves, he's a fantastic footballer, got so many attributes, but being turned and run behind is not one of them. And I felt that Parrott's performance identified that for a young player and thinking, I'm gonna really have a good time here. And every time we kind of like that low block, suck them in, the likes of DS and Ignacio's as the outside three centre halves, we're pushing into kind of like advanced areas. And I'm thinking, you've given us all that space for just a basic ball in behind, and we're going to get a chance here. And I genuinely felt, Joe, after 15 minutes, forget that 82% possession, I felt we're so comfortable here. If we get that first goal, which we will get chances, we had a couple of really good opportunities to get in behind. Was that final pass particularly good? Could have put Ogbeni in for a couple of strikes on goal. I just felt, listen, this is playing exactly how you want it to be. Prior to the game, you're thinking, no Bruno in the team, who's so good in that second line of attack, is a goal threat. You're now relying on Vitinha and João Neves as being your kind of goal threats. And they haven't scored any goals this campaign. So ultimately, then I'm looking at it and thinking, it's only really Ronaldo as a threat against our big three, narrow five in the box. And we're literally saying to Portugal, okay, take the wide areas, just cross the ball, and we'll deal with it all day. And then I'm looking at those wide areas and you're thinking, you've picked Dalot as your left wing back, as a right footer, who every time is just going to come back into play, into where we are in numbers. And it was just so obvious that from that early moment, in 15 minutes, I thought, you're just running into a maze here of green shirts and you've got no idea how to break us down. If you're going to put balls in a box, that's not going to cause no problems whatsoever. And you could see the confidence building. You could feel the energy from the crowd. And then when we got that opening goal, which was incredible play. If you go bring that back, Joe, we pass it out from the goalkeeper, Collins into O'Shea, into Scales, lovely little ball into Azaz, gets it back and then plays that ball blind in behind. And it causes Neves unbelievable panic in terms of passing it back. The goalkeeper gets caught. We get the first goal. And from that moment on, I'm literally sitting back thinking, we've got this. We have actually got this.
Wow, so interesting. So in putting Neves there at centre-back in the heart of the defence, they gave us the one thing we wanted. The basic ball was on.
They gave us, and that not alone, they gave us everything we could possibly want for as a team that is star-studded squad. I'm looking at him thinking, you're playing Ignacio as a footballing culture left back. He doesn't even want to defend. And no wonder they got taken off. Cancelo on the other side. So your two wing backs are essentially players who've got no real pace. So they're not going to hurt you. There's no Mendes at left back through suspension, but they didn't even pick Semedo who can hurt you. And then I'm thinking, okay, if you want to play against Ireland, you do all your research. You could see that we've gone to this low block, but you played against us a month ago. You know exactly how we want to play, and yet you still don't pick Ramos at centre forward with Ronaldo. You still pick one centre forward who we can just crowd out, and all this intricate play in front of us ultimately just allowed us to kind of have a breather and go, right, we reset. We're going to get in positions. We're going to collect you. Listen, they got fantastic technical players, and you can argue the case that why would they change when they've been so successful? But I always think that elite managers have that insight to know how the game will play out before it plays out. How could Martinez not know that that was how the game was going to play out and pick that team?
You mentioned the first goal then. Where did this Josh Cullen bit of backspin ping corner from? Where's that been? It's amazing.
They've obviously worked on it. And that's the added bonus again of putting Scales in at left wing back, is that essentially you've got four centre-backs in your team. And I mean, like, God almighty, you're giving João Felix to mark Scales on the edge of the box. You just shrugged him off as if he was an apprentice.
Yeah.
And then they don't deal with the first ball at first contact. And just from that moment on, you could just see the confidence, because I always felt if we got the first goal, it puts them under huge pressure to try and break us down. And it gives us something to hold on to.
Yeah. So that was goal one. And then let's talk about his overall performance in a moment. But just the quality of the second goal on Parrott's part, the technique, the intelligence, spoke in the interview afterwards about just sensing or seeing that the defender's legs were open. Keeper obviously expects the curler into the far corner. You can draw a lot about Parrott from the second goal.
You absolutely can. And ultimately, it's based on confidence, Joe, because he just looked so composed in everything he did. Listen, the goals are the headlines, and of course they are, and you're obviously judged on that. But I thought his whole round play was brilliant. There was one occasion in the first half where he hunted the ball back deep in our midfield, and they played the ball through him, and he had two or three players around him, dropped the shoulder, got out of it, released us up the pitch, and I just thought, you're playing with such confidence. Of course, that comes from how good a season he's having for RZ in the Eredivisie, and of course, that injury was a massive blow to us. But do you know what I saw there, Joe? Because I've seen Parrott as a 17-year-old on the Spurs tour, and he went up against Inter Milan centre-back at the time and Manchester United. They were pre-season games. I remember vividly doing them, and he was brilliant. He bullied them as a 17-year-old. I'm thinking, this guy's got a massive career. But of course, football's such a difficult road to kind of like navigate as a young player. And we kind of felt like, a couple of loan moves hasn't really happened to him. Now he's found a home. We've suddenly got a player who looks so accomplished at this level. Yeah. He's 22 only. Yeah. We kind of forget just how good he is.
Yeah, he's amazing. And he, so the injury, it's such a pity he was injured for this campaign, because in the games earlier this year, he was the best player on the pitch in a couple of those games.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually quite rare. Centre forward who will look after the ball, almost virtually never give it away.
Yeah, no, and it's crucial. It really is in terms of that low block team, because you need something to relieve the pressure. Don't get me wrong, the way they set up allowed us to do that, but he still had people flooding him. But he just obviously looked at Neves at centre half and thought, I'm going to really enjoy this evening.
Yeah. So like long term, him and Ferguson in the same side.
Yeah, listen, whether or not that will happen, it certainly won't happen against Hungary, but potentially going forward, there's a template there. I loved how we played last night. I give the players so much kudos, but I don't think you could pick a better team to play against for that type of system in terms of how Portugal want to play. Okay. Yeah, I think Hungary will certainly ask different questions of us, and I'd be amazed if they kind of let us off the hook the way that Portugal did in terms of relieving pressure. Because those three centre-backs at times, though the two, DS and Ignacio, were split, Neves was virtually at times past the centre circle in terms of trying to press. So he's given all that space in behind for a basic ball. And listen, the lads were clipping lovely ones in there, but it was such a margin for error that the likes of Ogbene and Parrott just kept everything alive. In terms of that, Joe, it was brilliant. And there's so many headline acts in terms of everyone getting all the kudos and rightly all the praise. But if you dissect it, it was brilliant in terms of asking players to do things they're not particularly comfortable with. If you think about Azaz and Ogbene on them outside of that midfield, that really narrow back central midfield of four, there'll be times where we're saying, listen, let the ball go wide, but it goes against everything you kind of grew up in terms of being a wide player, that you feel, I've got to get out there and put some pressure on you. And they didn't. They did not get sucked into going out. They held that position. Cullen was masterful in there in terms of making sure they were. So that was so alien to them. Taylor has, nearly played centre forward for us in games this season. The best part of his game is always attacking. He did not attack. He stayed in his shape. And the narrowness of the back three, obviously Coleman and Scales narrowing up as well. Do you know what? I was in my element watching that last night.
Yeah. So kudos to Hamer Hallgrimsson, who's taken his fair share of stick, obviously, lately.
Yeah, listen, take the credit. I will. There's a caveat to say that, and he said this prior to the game in Lisbon, that this is the easier game to prep for, and it is. It is in terms of adopting that. Credit to the players for executing the plan, because the plan's pretty basic. I'm not taking anything away from them.
Yeah,
it is pretty basic, and you have always got that out ball that suddenly looked like every time they played it was going to get a shot on goal. It certainly was going to get Portugal defending on the edge of their box, which allows your defenders a breather. But yeah, in terms of how tough it is and how scrutinised you are as a manager, then yeah, listen, let him enjoy it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I take your point for sure that Hungary won't just gift this on a plate to us the way Portugal did, certain aspects of the way Portugal set up. But it is kind of interesting when you take a slightly broader view of Irish football over the last 6-7 years, that we broadly felt Stephen Kenny the right man for the job, that we had to start playing quote unquote modern football, and we had to go after that. And that initial year or two of Kenny was like real short passing out from the back, and they became a little bit more pragmatic as it went on, but it was really trying to buy into the values of Pep Guardiola inspired football. And it didn't suit us, but I think we felt, well, this is the right thing to do, and if we persevere with it long enough, we'll get good at it. And obviously that just never happened under Kenny. And now, as Hal Grimson has come in with this increasingly pragmatic approach. You know, the longer he's worked with the side, it's gone from 4-4-2 to actually we're more of a five at the back. We just can't concede is how he's starting to see this team. It is really interesting that with this shift in Irish football, it sort of mirrors what's happening to an extent,
Europe.
obviously, in Europe, in the Premier
Yeah.
League. Like, it's funny when Ogbene in the first half, and it was great play. And look, he looked a lot better for having 3-4 weeks with Sheffield United. But
Yeah.
there was that moment where he could have just booted the ball and cleared it or passed it, but it wasn't really on, and he sensed that, and so he started to he took a good first touch and he dribbled up the line and he won a throw in, and the stadium like erupts, and you know we're going to have a long throw in then, and we're going to shamelessly do it. It was almost like we're not self-conscious about this football anymore. If this is what the big boys are doing over in the Premier League, then actually this stuff never goes out of fashion. It's still tough to play against. And I thought there was kind of fuck it, we'll lean into it if that's the way football is. It's like, it's come back. We're like, we know this game. You know, it's that kind of a moment. And the fans were like, yeah, bloody right, throw it in. It was that kind of an occasion.
Yeah, and your words there is like, we know this game, but the crucial factor is the modern day defender doesn't know it. They've had a generation, they can't cope with it. Listen, this is why Arsenal are doing what they're doing, because they're finding the fine margins. Where can they find weaknesses? And ultimately, it is that modern day defender. I mean, we highlighted Neves as a midfielder really by trade. I know he's played centre back a lot, but he's not a quintessential defender in terms of rolling his sleeves up. But even the likes of Diaz has struggled last year because of teams like Bournemouth went direct against Manchester City. They weren't sitting back terrified and letting them dictate play. They were actually asking questions, good early balls forward. And it just looked like an Ireland team. It did. It felt like an Ireland team. The stadium sounded like an Ireland in terms of all those times that we would play, and you could see the fear in your opponents lining up in the tunnel before you're going out, because you're going to ask questions of them. And I love the fact that it's gone full circle, but I genuinely think the reason it has is because there is a generation of players now who grew up never having to deal with those scenarios, because it's all playing through the thirds, it's all splitting centre backs and passing out. Just can't cope with it, and we're exploiting it. Brilliant.
Yeah. Ronaldo,
listen, frustrating. Oh, I don't know if anyone. I've not read any reports today, and I don't know if anyone kind of like dissected it afterwards. But you may well be able to correct me. But prior to him getting sent off, as that phase of play is developing, I'm smiling, then I'm laughing. I'm thinking, yeah, this is brilliant. So what happens is Ronaldo's on the left wing. He just plays a simple ball into midfield, and O'Brien closes him down, but gives him a good bump into his back. So it's one of those where you're loose, you're not strong, you're not set.
Yeah.
It's bloody annoying.
Yeah.
Right. So the ball then goes back. So it goes out to the.
It's a cheap shot.
It is, but when you're not ready for it, someone does it. It's like whiplash. You hate it as a player. I'm telling you, it gets your back up. So he does that. Ball goes to the other side, yeah, and then he gets himself set Ronaldo to kind of attack across, and he don't even see him out of nowhere. Girl comes from behind, does exactly the same into him, bumps him forward. He's fuming. Then he goes into O'Shea, who does the same, and that's where he lost the head. And when you see his reaction on getting booked, he says, you can see him, he goes, push, 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 push the whole time. All they're doing is pushing me. And then when I watched the first half back today, they were doing it all game.
Right.
And you could see his reaction. And that is you're talking about arguably the greatest player, the most experienced player in the world, just lost his head, didn't like it. And it was all just that little bit of getting at him, getting him to react, and he did react. Now, having said all that, Joe, the sending offs against Hungary and Armenia got us out of jail. Absolutely. Without them, we're out. We're not coming back. Him getting sent off didn't make any difference to me. I didn't feel it did. I felt the game was won. Now, you can argue that, listen, he's broke our hearts with late goals previously and such like that, but I didn't think it had that big a bearing on it. I genuinely didn't.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. And I mean, it was actually bizarre how, I wouldn't say I was bored or anything, but how tension-free the last 20 minutes were.
Yeah.
Like, we're just playing out here. These guys have thrown in the towel. It was over.
Yeah. Do you know what? I was looking at Martinez on the sideline thinking, you've got no idea how to get out of this. And it really evoked memories of, like, say, for example, that kind of game against Holland where, it's so tense. It's only 1-0, that famous McAteer win, and we go down to 10 men. And then you've got Van Gaal, this iconic, like, mastermind of a coach, just throwing centre forwards on, a complete mess.
Yeah.
And we see the game out. And and you're kind of thinking he had no answer to it. He's got all that star-studded squad. And he's still standing there thinking, I just don't know how we're going to recover this game. I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah. So Sunday, 2 o'clock, Budapest. I guess to be pessimistic for a moment, we haven't generally fared well in these second games, not least
Yeah.
after big emotional output, and that was a big emotional output last night.
And I think it will be emotional for Hungary because I think once they got that win, that early kickoff, I think they thought it was done.
Yeah.
They probably thought, being professional, but they would have thought that, oh no, it's done. Portugal should win or they'll draw, whatever, and we're in a great position. Now all of a sudden they've got to we've got to go again.
Yeah.
Whereas for our mindset is, yes, we're going again. That's what we wanted, was that second game. Hungary didn't. And you just wonder, at home, the expectancy will be on them. Oh, it's a massive...
That's a great point. Okay, I prefer looking at it that way. But then secondly, if they're worth their salt at all, they will look at how Ireland set up last night. They will look at what Portugal did, and they won't give us the same gifts tactically.
No, they can't. Just one clearance can't suddenly put you in on goal. It's just beyond naive, really. And I don't like to say arrogant because they're so successful, Portugal, but I'm just looking at the tactics and thinking, wow, as much as we can say that the Portuguese players underperformed, oh wow, their coaching staff absolutely did in terms of setting their team up.
I'm sure it was a bit of arrogance, like even Ronaldo coming out chatting to Nathan Collins, and it's just like we're through. We know we're through. We're just kind of rubber stamping these games, and even like the Ogbene shot off the post, that just comes from like a breakdown in Irish play, and someone. To be fair, he doesn't hack it, but he just whips one around the corner, and suddenly Ogbene's in. That is too easy.
So easy, just incredible to think that, and this is what you're seeing, is that normally when they're playing against the other giants of European football, those teams wouldn't play the ball so early like that. But it is changing, no doubt. We're seeing it in the Premier League, and it asks questions, and it's hard to defend when you're continually being turned like that. It's not agricultural. It's just it's common sense football, to be perfectly honest. If your opponent's there not particularly good at something, well then keep asking them to do it, and we did.
Yeah. So how do you feel about Sunday then, as a final kind of thought?
I feel confident. I feel great about where the team are. I do think it's a big challenge for us, and certainly, but I still look at the fact that Hungary do concede goals. They're not one of those teams that kind of will just see it out. I know they got that winning Armenia, but I think we'll get chances. I think one thing I would like to see an improvement on, because if I thought about how good Portugal were last night, if you think about those chances that they had, like Vitinha, Neves or Dallo blazing over, Felix blazing over, all seem to be on kind of corners, second phases put back in. And that would be a concern for me, because I'm thinking, we've got 4 centre-backs here. Why is that causing us so many problems? I think Hungary are quite good at it. That would be a concern. And I think it's all about discipline now at this stage. That first game against Hungary, it's over at 2-0. It just is. And then that forward gets sent off, and you think, ridiculous. Likewise against Armenia, I think the game was at risk. Stupid sending off again. I think it's being after back, cool, calm heads. And I just feel that as the away team, I think the home fans in Hungary will be thinking, we should be winning this at home, Ireland, blah, blah, blah. I just want to see if they can cope with that pressure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I was at the game in Dublin, the Hungary game. And certainly that first 35 minutes, they had a lot of the ball. You'll remember Szoboszlai was dropping between centre halves. He played as a 6.
Yeah.
And Rossi afterwards in the press conference said that they've been telling Szoboszlai for the last 18 months, 2 years, they think he should be a 6. And we never really got to grips with him. Nobody sat in him. Nobody made his life difficult. And then he was picking little passes between the lines in our midfield. You remember, like Jason Knight sometimes was like, am I squeezing in, or am I going to the full back? Because they were going between a back 5 and a back 4. They had a nice little bit of, they were good at that on that night. Yeah.
But all that clarity that we showed last night,
that should take care of that.
Was completely missing in that first game.
It was.
I think there's so much to be said as a player where you really trust the structure of your team, that you feel like there are moments that are going to be difficult, but you can rely on the structure. And I think in previous games, these players have not been able to do that. I didn't think they were able to do that in the Stephen Kenny reign. Ultimately, you've got some, difficult moments, and you just got to be able to say and sit back and go, okay, well, this is a difficult moment, but we're set. Everyone all right? Everyone know what they're doing. I think we've got that now.
Yeah. Very, very last one.
Go on.
Einar Hallgrimsson.
Yeah.
Does his future come down to Sunday, or on the basis of last night, do you think this is a guy worth
Ah,
persevering with?
100%, 100% Sunday.
Sunday.
Listen, yeah, listen, that was incredible night last night, but we need some clear heads to kind of think, okay, well, they played really well there. If we then lose Sunday, then you have to really look at what he's actually done. And then the big question is, do you feel going forward that if he has more time, he can be better? I think ultimately we'll look at Heimer and think, because he didn't know our players when he originally turned up, it took too long. We had to give up the Nation League. We give up the start of this, and now he's suddenly. You're thinking, why hire someone who don't really know our players? You know, that way.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be asking. I don't think we've seen, and I genuinely believe this, and I give him so much kudos. Brilliant last night, and even him liking to think that he gets into Ronaldo's head and stuff like that in terms of him reacting. But I genuinely still don't think we've seen anything from Jaime that our coaches is beyond our coaches,
Okay.
our own national coaches.
Okay. Geez, well, God, so much of the next couple of years contingent on just one game Sunday, 2 o'clock. So we'll be watching. We will talk to you when we talk to you, Gary. That was brilliant stuff. Great night last night. Let's see what happens Sunday.
Amazing stuff, really. Let's hope we're as positive then as we are now.
Yeah. All
Thanks,
right, man.
Joe.
Thanks. Take care.